Hi, Dave Wright here again with another episode of True Tales from the Golden Burro. Before we start on some exciting historical adventures this week, I wanted to point out we had such an overwhelming response with our tamale special. We're going to run it again. 3 tamales, either veggie or our beef tamales, side of refritos and Spanish rice. You get the whole package for $9.95. If you walk away hungry from this meal, you are somebody special. You'll notice here that we're showing you a picture of Charlie Fry's old 1943 Golden Burro menu. And I thought you'd get a chuckle out of some of the prices that we see here, because obviously food prices have gone up considerably since 1943, but we thought you'd get kind of a chuckle out of looking at some of these prices. And we think that our tamale special is pretty well priced too, but don't forget that we're still promoting this Valentine's Day weekend, and we've got a couple of really neat deals going for you. We've got a strawberry cream martini, and that one, $5.95. It's, oh boy, to die for. We're also featuring lemon meringue pie and pineapple upside down cake. And again, for our Valentine's Day special, we're going to be featuring a Monte Cristo sandwich. We're going to be selling the drinks and the cakes all the month of February and saving the Monte Cristo just for Valentine's Day. Before we start this week's historical story, which I think you're really going to like this week, for you history buffs, thought I'd point something out kind of interesting about the month of February. In 1878, on February 4th, Horace Tabor was elected Leadville's first mayor. On the 19th of February in 1878, he was appointed Leadville's postmaster. Now, February started out pretty good for Horace, but in February 19th of 1898, 20 years later, after Horace's demise financially had taken place, he was then promoted the postmaster of Denver. It's interesting to note that also on February 3rd, 1883, Tabor was sworn in as a U.S. Senator. February 1st, 1895, Horace Tabor's first wife, Augusta, also died in Pasadena, California. So February was a very interesting month for the city of Leadville. This week's history story is about a question that we've been asked here a number of times here at the Golden Burro, and it has to do with a photograph that was taken back in Leadville in 1879, right at the time that it was exploding into the boom town that it was going to be. I think you're going to really like this story.
One of only a handful of early photographs taken on Harrison Avenue, close to the booming business area of State and Chestnut Streets, this 1879 photograph shows wood frame false buildings, rough-cut stones, sawhorses, and awnings. You can almost hear the sawing and pounding going on. Leiningers and the Little Kerr Crockery are seen here among a multitude of other businesses opening daily during the explosive mining boom era of Leadville. Silver had been discovered and the rush was on. In this photo as well, and often asked about, is a small cabin. In 1878, it was one of the first cabins built in the explosive mining district that would soon be called Leadville. Who owned it? How did it come to be built in the middle of Harrison Avenue? And even more mysterious is the question of what this tiny cabin had to do with the formation of the Leadville Electric Light Company, the Harrison Hook and Ladder Company, the Leadville Baseball and Athletic Association, and what was reputed to be the most elaborate and successful entertainment theater and saloon Leadville ever saw. mining boomtown that was plagued by a criminal element made up of lot jumpers and footpads, crooked lawyers and con men, prostitutes and thieves, where honest citizens were advised to stay off the streets at night, but if they had to be out after dark, to walk down the middle of the street with a drawn revolver held in their shooting hand, where newspaper articles carried daily such headlines as "Lynch Law at Work," "As Assassin's Bullet in His Brain," "Crooked Copper," "A Family Fight," "Fire Fiend at Work in Our Midst," "Poisoned, a Horrible Murder," "Today's Tragedy," "Dr. McGee Commits Suicide Last Night," where its first police chief was threatened after only 3 days on the job, suggesting he might breathe easier and a bit longer if he left town, which he did. Where his replacement lasted only 3 weeks before being murdered at the Bon Ton Saloon on Chestnut Street. And where it seemed no one could find one honest game of cards, or a place of entertainment where gunfire and brawling were not the order of the day. Was there really a place here in Leadville for an honest businessman? In early 1880, shortly after the discovery of massive amounts of silver, lead, gold, and other precious metals in Leadville's mining district, the city of Leadville witnessed the construction of an elaborate 3-story building located at 124 Harrison Avenue. Its owner, Colonel Charles E. "Pap" Wyman, like most saloon owners, not surprisingly named it Wyman's Place, and it quickly became one of Leadville's most respected establishments. As the local newspaper reported, the erection of a mammoth clubhouse on the southeast corner of State Street and Harrison Avenue, known as Wyman's Place, is the most complete institution of its kind west of the Mississippi. No visitor ever thought of departing Leadville without first visiting this wonderful establishment, while to most, it is the first object sought out. Every game known to the sporting fraternity is conducted here upon terms of the strictest fairness and justness, and here is nightly seen a gathering of promiscuous elements to be found nowhere else on earth under one roof. Considering the violent and lawless nature of Leadville at the time, Pap Wyman's success stands as a lesson for all of us. His success shows us how practicing a solid standard of honest business ethics, particularly in the reckless environment that Pap faced daily, actually works. He was known as a good Christian with a unique set of moral values and was highly supportive of numerous community projects and organizations. Inside his place, serving a free hot lunch, he allowed no drunks inside, assuring family men didn't blow their paychecks on liquor. No people who have a family depending on them, which they neglect, are allowed to gamble. He keeps a policeman on duty at his place at his own expense, and there has never been a pistol fired or a row started since it commenced. Pap Wyman is no gambler himself. He is strictly a businessman, practical, honest, and solid. This he considers the secret of his success. A large clock hanging on the wall of Pap's place had a sign beneath it, "Please do not swear." Underneath the clock and the sign was a large Bible, and it was known throughout Leadville that those who paid little attention to the sign agreed to either spend some time reading the Bible to atone for their transgression or be ejected back out onto the street. A young man, new to Leadville, had been spotted entering Wyman's Place. Shortly after, he was reported to be picking his way carefully across the street, and when last seen by this reporter, he was absorbed in the pages of Pap Wyman's well-read Bible. Within a year, Pap Wyman had quickly earned the respect of the honest residents of Leadville and those who saw its future unfolding. The entire block on Harrison Avenue, where his theater was located, was now named the Wyman Block. The first issue of the Democrat newspaper was published in the basement of Wyman's Place. In March of 1881, he was a visionary in progress and became one of the incorporators of the Leadville Electric Light Company, an endeavor that eventually developed into his own manufacturing facility of electric lighting equipment in the basement of his building. In January of the following year, he was presented with a gold-headed cane and was touted as the coming man of Leadville. He was on the Harrison Hook and Ladder Company committee and was a strong supporter of the Tabor Hose Company and all the firefighters in Leadville. He was one of those selected to tour Leadville's famous Matchless Mine with Oscar Wilde when he visited Leadville. Although defeated in a run for mayor as an independent, he was active in the Lake County Democratic Party and was often sought out to resolve conflicts in business disputes as well as political conflicts. He was the chairman or guest speaker at countless community events and celebrations, and opened his Wyman's Place facility to the community countless times, once even featuring a rare turtle soup entree at a dinner. He was one of the founders of the Leadville Baseball and Athletic Association in July of 1882, and a strong supporter of community events. In short, if there was a community need, Pap was a well-recognized part of it. And while remaining active in community activities, Pap also continued to expand his highly successful business. He had a unique talent for recognizing economic opportunities, particularly in the entertainment business. On December 15th of 1884, he converted part of his mammoth establishment into a vaudeville theater, and before the first season ended, it became the most famous in all the Rocky Mountain country. Experienced in the business and having a natural taste for it, failure was out of the question. One after another rival institution went to the wall, until Colonel Wyman soon occupied the vaudeville field alone. Colonel Wyman is also the proprietor of Broadway Park in Denver, also the most superb resort in the West, and doubtless the best patronized. As Pap's success continued to grow, and his interests in Denver were also flourishing, in February of 1890, Pap elected to move to Denver. He'd purchased property there, and although his love for Leadville remained, he felt Denver was where he was needed now. His Leadville place was turned over to Julius Kolsch and William Cowan. And while he continued with his success in Denver, Leadville still hadn't forgotten him. Carlisle Channing Davis wrote in May of that same year, "When one looks back to the early days of Leadville, recalling the scenes of boisterous conviviality, too often the click of a deadly revolver was heard in our musings. One place that revives pleasant memories as a house where you were always welcome was 124 Harrison Avenue. It was here that the fatherly Pap Wyman dispensed his favors to his multitude of friends. Twined round this building, the memories of Pap will always be associated." Colonel Charles E. Pap Wyman died in Denver in May of 1891. The Leadville Daily and Evening Chronicle reported, "Pap Wyman is dead at the age of 56 and leaves 4 sons and a host of friends to mourn for him. Mr. Wyman was a progressive man and was the first to have his entire building lighted with electricity, the machinery for generating the electricity being placed in the basement. No one deserving of assistance was turned ever away from Mr. Wyman's door empty-handed, and yearly he gave large sums of money to different charitable institutions in the city, and to the poor he was a kind and considerate friend. Those who knew Pap will learn of his death with profound sorrow, as by his natural geniality, open-heartedness, and liberality he made himself hosts of friends." And so, what does this amazing Leadville businessman and generous community servant have to do with a tiny log cabin sitting dead in the middle of Leadville's Harrison Avenue in 1879? When Pap Wyman arrived in Leadville, sometime around 1877 from nearby Georgetown, he quickly saw opportunity in Leadville. With what little money he had, he secured 2 lots well north of the bustling area of State Street and Chestnut Street. One became his residence, as shown here, while the other became the primary office of his first business, the Colorado Lottery. But Harrison Avenue began expanding north, and it was rapidly becoming the new primary business street of Leadville. This growth prompted Leadville City Council to issue an order for Wyman to remove his cabin from the middle of the street. And although officials were initially met with armed resistance, demonstrating that Pap Wyman was not to be trifled with, his ability to find compromise in difficult situations soon ended the standoff with an arrangement between him and the city of Leadville. An arrangement which resulted in the construction of the spectacular Wyman's Place and the launching of the Leadville career of Colonel Charles E. Pap Wyman, a career that would bring electricity and baseball to Leadville and develop a more modern and visionary infrastructure to this amazing city. This cabin, although long ago removed, remains captured in this photo. At the time, who would have guessed it was the home of a man who would stand out as one of Leadville's future community leaders and builders? Quite a humble beginning for a man who would create one of Leadville's most prosperous and standout businesses and stand as an inspiration to everyone to be involved with their community, proving the good side of mankind will always prevail. And now you know the mystery of the lonesome little log cabin standing in the middle of Harrison Avenue.
By the way, we appreciate all your comments. The list of people watching this is growing. Feel free to drop us a note. In the meantime, check in with us a week from now and we'll have another brand new True Tales from the Golden Burro.